All right, we just finished this problem, and now we're going to go to 27. So I skipped 26. I can't number. So yeah, so we can solve this using, we can't factor, it doesn't factor, but we can solve it using completing the square or quadratic formula because those two work for anything. I used quadratic formula on the answer key, and so I'm going to do completing the square on this one. See that you can see it doesn't matter which one you pick. All right, so if I want to do completing the square, I need to move that 5 over. And so I get x squared minus 6x plus blank equals, and so when I add 5 to both sides, I get 5 plus blank. And so in that blank, I need to do b over 2 squared. And so that b is negative 6. And so negative 6 over 2 is negative 3. And negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. And so I need to add 9 to both sides. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Be even, Steven. All right, now I need to write this guy. Okay, negative 14. Plus 9, yeah, 14. Huh. All right, so I'm going to do x, and then for the piece that goes right here, it is b over 2. And so I'm going to write x minus 3. And so 14. Now 1 second. Oh my gosh. On the answer key, it's wrong simply because 56 divided by 4 is not 4 times 13. It is 4 times 14. All right, and so I just, tiny mistake, but man, errors. It's amazing. All right, we need to get rid of that squared. And so to get rid of that squared, I'm going to take the square root. So I get x minus 3 squared. Square root 14. And when you take the square root of anything, you write plus minus. Oh, I said I took the square root, and when I take the square root, something squared, you get that something. Right. Now, I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So I get x equals 3 plus or minus square root of 14, which is what I would get on the answer key if I knew that 56 was 4 times 14, not 4 times 13. Okay. Otherwise, they're the same thing, regardless if we use quadratic formula or completing the square. I'm looking for, all right, quadratic equation. So this has got a square on it. So to get rid of a square, you take the square root. And so the square root of 9, when you take the square root, you do plus minus, is 3. And so we have x minus 9 equals negative 3. X minus 9 equals positive 3. And so that negative 9, we need to add both sides. Those cancel. Those cancel. And so negative 3 plus 9 is 6. And then 3 plus 9 is 12. And so we get 2 answers, and we knew we would get 2 answers because of that squared. All right, so determine for the following function. Okay, so x plus 1 squared minus 16. We define the vertex, y-intercept, x-intercepts, and a few other things. So the vertex will be this guy and that guy. And so it's always opposite of the first one, and then the second one is normal. And then the y-intercept, we're going to plug in 0 for x. And so 1 squared is 1, and 1 minus 16 is negative 15. So my y-intercept is 0, comma, negative 15. Remember, x and y-intercepts are always coordinates. All right, then the x-intercepts is when x-intercepts is when, I'm focused, sorry. X-intercepts is when y equals 0. Remember, f of x is the same as y equals. And so here I put 0 for the y. I'm going to add 16 to both sides. So I get x plus 1 squared equals 16. I need to get rid of that square, so I'm going to take the square root. When I take that square root, square root of 16 is plus minus 4. So I have x plus 1 equals negative 4. X plus 1 equals positive 4. And so I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides. And so negative 4 minus 1, negative 5. And then 4 minus 1, 3. So my x-intercepts are going to be negative 5, comma 0, and 3, comma 0. I'm going to keep that information in mind because in just a minute I have to graph it. So it's negative 5 and 3. Negative 5 and 3. And then like negative 15 is way down there. All right, we need to describe how it's transformed. So it moves left 1, down 16. The vertex, according to the other one, is negative 1, negative 16, which is a little further down than that 15. And if we wanted to connect these dots, it would look like that for the sketch. We just have to sketch it. Okay, the domain are all the x's. And so as we're coming up, the smallest x value, we have a arrow. And then as we're going to the left, or to the right rather, the biggest x, x value, we have another arrow. So arrows mean infinity. The range, let's do this guy. Okay, as the bottom, so the smallest y value down there is negative 16. And as we go up, we have arrows. And so arrows mean infinity or positive, negative infinity. And so the range is from negative 16 to infinity. And then the domain is from negative infinity to infinity. All right, so we want to simplify square root 60, negative 64. Well, you cannot take the square root of a negative number. Okay, it doesn't exist. But imaginary and complex numbers do exist. Square root 64 is 8. And so the square root of negative 64 is the same as square root negative 1 times 64. But the square root of negative 1 is I. And so the square root of 64 is 8, and the square root of negative 1 is I. So our answer is 8i. Right here, we're not allowed to have radicals, square roots, or imaginary numbers in the denominator. So to get rid of that, we're going to multiply the top and the bottom by the conjugate. Hang on. So when I do this, I'm going to do 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times square root of x. I'm just going to leave it like that. And then here, I'm going to do 2 times 2 is 4. Times square root of x is 2 square root of x. 2 times negative square root of x is negative 2 square root of x. Negative square root of x times square root of x is negative square root of x squared. And I need to simplify. These cancel. Square root and square cancels. So 10 plus 5x over 4 minus x. I have a plus on the answer key. and it needs to be a minus, totally a minus, because a negative times a positive is a negative. Otherwise, it's right. Alrighty. Let's FOIL this. So 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times negative I. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times negative I is negative 3I. I times 3 is 3I. I times negative I is negative I squared. So I have 9. Those guys cancel. And so then I get minus I squared is the same as negative 1. So I have 9 minus negative 1. Minus the negative is the same as plus the positive. So I have 9 minus 1, which is 10. I'm going to stop this video, and I'll do the last few problems, the word problems, on the next video.